What if I told you that Ferrari is about to completely change the season, and that not even Red Bull saw it coming? Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now, if we continue. Because while many thought that the irregular start was a sign of weakness, both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc have sent a message that changes absolutely everything. A message that does not speak of doubts, but of a total transformation that will come in Miami. Ferrari doesn't bring an improvement, it brings something much bigger. A package that the team itself considers capable of restarting the fight for the championship, after weeks in which the car already showed hidden potential that was simply not being taken advantage of. But here comes the really shocking thing. Hamilton already dropped that the problem was not just adaptation, but that the car needed a real leap in performance, even directly questioning the current base. And Leclerc, from another angle, confirmed exactly the same thing. The potential is there, but we haven't seen it yet. And now, with this new package, everything indicates that this Ferrari that we still don't know is about to appear. The big question is, are we facing the beginning of a new fight for the championship, or facing Ferrari's biggest broken dream in years? Ferrari arrives at the Miami GP in one of the strangest, but at the same time most decisive moments of the entire season, because what we are seeing is not simply a team that is trying to improve. It is a team that has been working silently to completely change its destiny in the championship. And it all starts with understanding where this turning point really comes from. The start of the season was not as expected. That is a reality. The debut left more doubts than certainties, with a car that failed to translate its potential into consistent results, especially in changing conditions where strategic decisions and lack of adaptation worked against it. In that context, both Hamilton and Leclerc found themselves in an uncomfortable situation. They knew that the car had something more, but that something simply did not appear on the track when they needed it most. And this is where the real tension of this story begins to build, because while from the outside it seemed that Ferrari was one step behind, internally the diagnosis was completely different. It was not a structural crisis, but rather a gap between the real performance of the car and its performance in the race. That is to say, Ferrari was not far away. It was wasting what it already had. That nuance changes absolutely everything. Because while other teams reacted race by race, Ferrari made a much more aggressive decision. Stop, analyze, and redesign. The unexpected break in the calendar was not just any pause. It was a strategic opportunity that the team used to accelerate a plan that was already underway, accumulating technical development instead of fragmenting it as is usual. And here appears the key concept that defines this act. Ferrari does not arrive in Miami with an evolution. It arrives with an accumulation of evolution. A package that combines developments planned for different phases of the season into a single introduction, radically raising the potential impact. But the most important thing is not only what they have built, but how their own pilots interpret it. Hamilton, who was coming from a clear progression in his adaptation to the car, had already begun to show signs that he perfectly understood where the real limits of the SF25 were. It was not a question of time. It was a question of pure performance, and that is why his message was so direct. A profound change was needed to truly compete. Leclerc, in parallel, reinforced that same idea from another angle. Their performances already showed that the car could be competitive in certain scenarios, even in adverse situations, but they also showed that there was a ceiling that they could not break with the current configuration. And when two drivers with such different styles agree on the same diagnosis, is because the problem and the solution are evident within the team. All this leads us to a conclusion that begins to take shape at this point in the script. Ferrari is not improvising, it is executing a plan that had been preparing for weeks, and Miami is not just another race, it is the moment chosen to show its true face. The tension is now maximum, because for the first time in the season we are not talking about external expectations, but rather a clear, direct, and aligned internal message. The car we will see in Miami is not the same one we saw at the beginning of the year. And that opens an inevitable question that begins to set the course for everything to come. Because this package of improvements is not a traditional evolution. It is not that typical progressive change that barely moves a few tenths. It is a profound redesign that directly attacks the most critical weaknesses of the car. And this is where everything starts to take on a completely different dimension. Ferrari has worked on multiple fronts at the same time, but there's one that changes everything: the aerodynamic base of the car. The new floor, which was due to be introduced much earlier in the season, has been completely refined for weeks, which means that it not only arrives more evolved, it arrives tested, corrected, and optimized. And in today's Formula One, where performance comes from the ground, this is not a minor detail, it is the heart of the car. Added to this is an even more aggressive concept: The new rear spoiler, a completely different solution that breaks with convention. We are not talking about a simple DRS. We are talking about a system that modifies its behavior more efficiently, reducing resistance without compromising stability in the same way as before. And although it will not be usable on all circuits, on tracks like Miami, it can make a brutal difference in top speed and air management. But the most important thing is not each piece separately, it is the whole. Ferrari has not introduced these improvements in isolation. It has validated them for weeks so that they work as a complete system. And that is exactly what makes Hamilton send that message so clear, because he's already felt the limit of the previous car and knows what it means to break it. In fact, his words after the last races were not coincidental. When he spoke about the need for real change in performance, he didn't do it from a place of frustration. He did so from an internal knowledge of what was to come. I knew the car needed something more, and now that something is ready. And Leclerc, for his part, leaves an equally important but quieter signal. Because when a driver who's already been able to squeeze the most out of the car begins to hint that the real potential has not yet come out, it means that the margin for improvement is not small, is structural. And that fits perfectly with what Ferrari has prepared. They know that Miami is not just another race on the calendar. It is the stage where Ferrari is going to reveal if all this work really puts them in the direct fight, or if they are still one step behind. And with all this on the table, the story enters its most decisive point. Because if Ferrari gets this package right, not only will they get into the fight, and this is where everything converges, because there's no more theory, there's no more room to hide. Miami is the point where Ferrari has to demonstrate if everything it has built is real or just another promise. All the accumulated work, all the weeks of development, all the statements from Hamilton and Leclerc come to a single moment, going out on the track and confirming whether that jump that they have hinted at so much really exists. Because if this process has made anything clear, it is that within the team there are no doubts. It is not a speech to the press. It is not the typical optimism prior to a major update. It is an internal conviction that the car we will see is radically different from the one at the beginning of the season. And that completely changes the scenario. If Ferrari manages to make all the pieces work as expected, we are not talking about cutting a few tenths. We are talking about entering directly into the fight against the leaders, going from being a team that seeks answers to one that begins to ask uncomfortable questions to the rest of the grid. And this is where Hamilton's message becomes even more powerful. Because he's not talking like someone who hopes to improve. He's talking like someone who feels like he can compete. And when a pilot with his experience sends that type of message, it is no coincidence. It's because he's already seen something within the team that makes him believe this could be the real turning point. Leclerc, for his part, represents the other side of this story, silent confirmation. He already knows the limits of the car. He has already experienced what it is like to squeeze the most out of it, even when it was not enough. And now, for the first time, everything indicates that those limits can disappear. But all this has one condition, and is the most important of all. It has to work from the first moment. Because Ferrari has bet everything on this movement. They have not gone step by step. They have compressed their development. They have taken risks. They have decided that Miami will be the breaking point. And that means that there is no room for half measures. Either it works and they change the season, or the blow can be very hard. Ferrari has gone from the doubts at the beginning of the season to quietly building one of the most aggressive bets on the entire grid. They have not followed the easy path. They have not gone step by step. They have decided to concentrate everything in a single blow at a key moment on a circuit where important changes, of course, have already been marked in Formula One in the past. But what really makes Miami a game changer isn't just the technical package. It's the message that accompanies it. Hamilton no longer talks like someone who is adapting. He talks like someone who hopes to compete. And that completely changes the perception of Ferrari. Because after a beginning where even he himself recognized that the process was more complex than expected, now the discourse is different. He is direct, he is ambitious, and above all, he is dangerous for his rivals. Leclerc, from his position, reinforces that same feeling. He knows better than anyone where the limits of the car were. And if he now suggests that those limits may disappear, is because within the team they have found something that they did not have before. And therein lies the key to everything. Ferrari not only brings improvements, it brings an opportunity. The opportunity to go from chaser to real contender, to leave behind the narrative of untapped potential and turn it into tangible performance on the track. But like any big bet, the risk is just as big. Because if it works, Ferrari can completely change the championship. He can get into the direct fight, He can force McLaren and Red Bull to react. He can turn each race into a totally different scenario than the one we have seen so far. But if it fails, it won't be just another update that doesn't deliver. It will be a direct hit to the credibility of the entire project. That's why Miami is not just a race. It's a test. The test of whether everything Hamilton and Leclerc have hinted at for weeks was a real warning or just another illusion. And now that you have all the context, the real question is inevitable. Are we about to see Ferrari reborn or witness another opportunity that slips away just when it seemed like everything was going to change? Subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.